Good afternoon. The Old Fisherman's with you. We're trying to make a video on showing you kind of some of the things I use. I want to show you the Starlight Chartreuse jig, slider jig that I'm using. And then I want to show you the triple ripple black and blue that I'm using right there. And then we got a June bug black and blue. Well, it's actually June bug and green. And then of course the triple ripple I use for crappies a lot of times. When I caught them this spring, they was on this green and chartreuse. And this slider jig I use sometimes. Now here's a jig I use early spring casting for largemouth and Lake Murray in the ditches, and 12-15 foot of water in ditches early spring, like February. Perfect jig for that with light line, catch a lot of bass, rockfish on it. It's a swim bait. It's a Bass Assassin crappie swim bait, and it works with an 1/8 ounce head real good. Of course, you know, we use the gulp shrimp. The 2-inch gulp shrimp is what I use, and this is the way I set it up on the hook with a big head. I use the bigger heads when the water gets real cold and I'm fishing real deep with the 3 rigs. With the double rigs, I use the 1/8 ounce head on the ultralight. But I use a short shank head. It's important to use the short shank head for the triple ripples. And if you don't use the shorter shank head, then you have problems with the shank of the hook being too long for the triple ripple. So the small jigs, I use this particular head right here with the black eye, and I don't know the name of this one. I apologize, but I think I get them at Academy Sports. I'm sorry. But and you see the shorter shanked head, and that's the difference right there. You see the difference in the shank of the hook. When we went to the beach, Miss Deborah used the H&H 1/4 ounce jig head for the ocean trout, and we also use the Assassin saltwater jig right here, the electric chicken color, and just a wonderful jig to use. And right here it is, one of them out. Electric chicken with the tail down. That's the way you want it right there, tail down. We use the berries, 1 ounce, a lot of times and bumping in Lake Murray for the bigger spoons and catching stripers. They'll hit it, pulling like the Flutter Spoon also, or bumping it. And then I use the Wahoo spoon on my 3 rig at the bottom, because it's good and heavy and wide. And we catch a lot of fish on that 3 rig, and when it gets real cold, like in January, February. And of course, you got the 1/2, 3/4, and a 1/4 ounce. You got the 1 ounce. You got all different sizes. On the berries, when you go to the 3/4, they got a narrow one. When you go to the 1 ounce, they got the wide one, and the .06, they wide. And of course, they got the 1/2 ounce, which is narrow also. I think they probably got the 1/2 ounce wide too. I just haven't used them. And I use the big bait sometimes, jig heads. A real good head to use also for the perch. And of course the Flutter Spoon. You got to love the Flutter Spoon. We caught so many on the Flutter Spoon. Here's one in the box right here. It's the Bombshell Shad. That was my favorite right there. And you can see one of them, they done eat some of this Bombshell Shad. You can see the marks all over it. So we caught a few on that. And then we got the Shattered Glass, which has got a lot of different colors. You can see it when I turn it, how sparkly it looks. It almost looks some greens in it. And it's a wonderful jig head. And then the Yum Money Minnow. I've caught so many bass and stripers on the Yum Money Minnow. And I like to use this round head for the Yum. It's not a big head, and it works real well for the swim bait. I love this head. I got them from Academy Sports. I ain't seen them up there lately. That's where I got them. I always use the Berkeley bait, the Berkeley line, big game, 8 pound in between my jigs. When I got the double rigs on, the 8 pound in between. And even with my 3 rigs, I like to use 8 pound in case Looney gets on one. He can maybe break one off, and I can get all my whole rig, half my rig back from Looney. But and then on my big rod, I use 10 in between, my main line rather, and 8 in between. On my little rods, my ultralights, and we got one right here. I love this little ultralight right here. It's a 6'6" Denelli, just a wonderful little rod. It's light action, and It's medium. It's 6'6", medium, 8 to 14 line, 3/8 to 3/16 to 3/8 ounce. It's just a wonderful little rod for the double rig on it. And we done got over here and got hooked up with one of my other rods. I'm not even fishing and getting in a mess. But love that rod. And here's the double rig that I use. I use the short shank head with slider jig. I got a swivel, about 12 inches of line to the slider, about 24 inches down to the next line, all the way down with a lead above it to the next jig. And that's what we got, one swivel with 2 lines coming off. A lot of times I'll double my line, tie it in the swivel, and then leave about 12 inches or so, or 18 on the first one, come on down a couple foot and put a lead in between, and you can see right there how it looks. The 2 jigs and a lead between it with the 8-ounce head. That's for my, when I'm using the slider jigs and the triple ripple, which are smaller jigs. So you want the smaller head with a shorter shank hook for that. That's important. When I'm fishing for crappies, I like to use, because I'm using 4, I got 4 on this, that yellow Mr. Crappie. I don't normally always use that, but that was the only 4 I had. And but 4-pound test, I go to a swivel, and I got about 24 inches of line, and I go with a number 7 or a little bit bigger, 5 or 6 lead above it. And the smaller the number on lead, the heavier the lead now. And I like to use this little crappie head right here. It's a good head to use, and that's the head I like for crappies. And it's a Lost Creek, the Pro's Choice crappie head. I like that little head, 16th. A lot of people go to 30 seconds, and I go to 30 seconds if I'm going to use a cart. But I'd always, even if I'm using a 32nd or 16th head, I'll use the lead above it. I always do. That gives it a bouncing effect, I believe, and it makes it dip and dodge different directions instead of straight up and down. If you jerk a lead, it kind of whips that jig. A lot of times, you get that bite you're looking for. And that's important now. I've learned that through trial and error and changing my style of fishing over and over. And that's how I've learned that. But I always leave it. I always hold the head, pull the line back to the hook, and that cocks the jig up at a vertical, a horizontal look. And that's what you want, a horizontal look. But just a little tip, that horizontal, my daddy taught me that. A lot of people use loop knots and stuff, and that'll do the same thing, but I double my line and tie my jigs. I got 2 lines going through, and I'll do the regular knot with the 2 lines. And with my bumping spoon, I use a light action H2O Express, nothing real fancy. I've got some expensive rods, and I've got a casting rod over here that I love dearly. And in fact, I ought to get that casting rod out for you and show you. But anyhow, right now, we got the inexpensive reel and a fast action 6'6" rod. I like to bump. I like some action on the end. When you bump that spoon, it gives it a kind of a yo-yo effect better than a stiff rod. I don't like a real stiff rod bumping a spoon. My 3 rig, I got a spoon on the bottom, and I got a 7-foot rod with this, an H2O. I got a spoon on the bottom with a swivel above it, and then we come on down. We got a jig hanging off about a 12-inch line with a swivel. Then I go up another 15, 18 inches, and up there we got another swivel with a jig. So that's my 3 rig. I got 3 swivels. One to drop off the first jig, goes down to another swivel, then a line, 2 lines off of it, one for the jig, one going to the other swivel for the spoon. And that swivel's important because it don't ravel up the line as bad and don't twist it up. And also, you'll see a spoon at the bottom. And that's what I use my Carolina Circle swing with, and I love it. Now, bear with me a second. I'm going to go get my casting rod, and I'll tell you what it is that I like so. Bear with me, I'm coming. On this casting rod, I tried something different. I got 3 rig on it with a little small action stuff. I don't much like spinning rods for any kind of spoon, I'll be honest with you. I like spinning rods with just jigs on it. And that's why I haven't been using this one, and it's all raveled up. But anyhow, I wanted to show you. We got a 3 rig, same thing, with actually 8-pound test, 2 swivels, and 2 jigs right here. You got a swivel, a jig, another line to another swivel, and then we got the swivel and a spoon. And on that one, I got the old Barry's 1/2 ounce spoon. I wanted the 3 rig with a 1/2 ounce, see if that would work. But I just don't like it. My wrist hurts on the right, and I really don't like the spinning rod for the 3 rig. I'll probably change that and just put 2 rigs on it. But on this casting rod, which is, you know, my new one I just got, I broke my other one. Y'all seen me break it. But this casting rod right here is a 6'6", fast medium, 6 to 12 pound test, 1/16 to 5/16 ounce. Is a little bit bigger than my other casting rod, and it's a P84366BS. But I love that little setup too. Good rod and reel. And that's just some of the things that I do, just to show you. And of course, when we out there for them stripers, I do use the swiper stripers sometimes. You got different sizes in them. And of course, Miss Deborah caught so many on this pencil popper. I know you got to love them. And then this doggone Barry spoon, that's a 1 ounce. That worked real well in Lake Murray. And when you go to that flat one like that and you go to reel it up, something like that Flutter Spoon, they'll take it just reeling. But glad y'all could be with me to show you some of my little tricks that I do. The Old Fisherman, and hey, we had a bad day today. I didn't catch but 2 dozen fish. That was a bad day. And but anyhow, hey, ever so often you have a bad day like that. The water was way down. Lake Monticello, when that water's way down, it's hard to fish. And it wasn't just mediocre down. You couldn't hardly unload it at the ramp. But the Old Fisherman, try them again tomorrow, the next day. And I'm glad you could be with me. I show you some of my little things that I do. And hope that helps you a little bit when you go fishing. See you on the next trip.